And please don't let that keep any of y'all from participating. You can jump into the chat at any point, ask questions, or even come on to the video. I'm going to kind of start off with a quick introduction. I'm Director of Distance Ed. Most of y'all have met me in some form or another or seen my name used in terms of Blackboard and Collaborate. And today, one of the big questions we've had kind of overall in discussions about how can we help support our faculty. One of those areas really is in terms of um, the Grade Center, the Gradebook. And this, as y'all probably know, the visa alerts are kind of coming out soon. And so we wanted to give you some tips and tricks, some things to kind of keep in mind. And these are things you don't really want to think about when you're prepping your course for the semester. You have a syllabus, you have other things you need to be doing. You don't really care about the Gradebook until you get that dreaded email from me or Seth or someone that says, oh, and by the way, your grade's not reporting. And then you call me and you go, I just don't know what's happening. And you get the emoji, the I don't know emoji happening in your world. And that's totally fine. The Gradebook is not as scary as it seems, but don't think it's always your fault. Sometimes Blackboard is just stubborn. As Erica and other people that will be speaking today can attest to, depending on what you're wanting to do, it can be very simple, and then you can build it to be more complicated or more complex. I don't want to say complicated, but the important thing I want you to kind of keep in mind is, if you're new to the Gradebook, is to keep it simple and kind of build your way up to the parts that you feel confident in. And then just know that if you get stuck, if you spend more than about, say, 10 minutes on trying to figure something out, you're probably spending too much time on it. And you probably just need to reach out to us and say help, because we're happy to be here. You have me, you have Casey, and you have Chrissy and your colleagues as well to support you. So for today, we're really just going to concentrate on the Grade Center itself. I have actually pulled up one. I promise not to embarrass anyone in the room and pull up theirs. So I'm going to be brave and pull up my own from the last time I taught, which is back in fall of 2020, so that you can actually see a Gradebook live and in person, and just see some of the settings and some of the things that I do to kind of keep it organized and maintained well. To keep it in FERPA compliance, I've actually hidden the first and last name. So I did not break it already, I promise. I just have that hidden so that y'all can't, we can keep this in the recording so that you can refer to it later. Some of the things I find helpful for me is, number one, making sure that my weighted total column or the external grade column is set to be the external grade. That is step number one. I've already got a list from the CCP advisors this morning saying we have some courses that aren't reporting and that we're going to go look for. And here's the trick. Here's the first trick of the day. When we copy your course, it can have this green check mark that you'll actually see on the weighted total. But when we copy your course, it won't be on the copied course. For some reason, we lose that check mark, probably 5 out of 6 times. We can't quite figure out why, because you all want to keep it the same column. So the first thing to do is just go ahead and make sure in your own full Grade Center view that whatever your column has been that you want it to go to a VSO is set as a percentage, and that you just go to the little drop down next to your column and choose set as external grade. If you do that correctly, you'll see a little green check mark. Good news is Blackboard's smart enough not to let you do more than one at a time. So you can't have 10 green check marks. You can only have one. So if you accidentally, and I have done this before, set the wrong column as your external grade column, or you inherited it and it's the wrong one, you can just go to the correct one, do the little drop down next to it, and choose set as external grade. And that's it. Now, another basic tool is, again, you get the request and you hear concerns about, well, it's still not reporting to a VSO, or my grades still don't look quite right. Well, part of that might be because you have it set as a score instead of a percentage. So with weighted total column, or whatever you call your average column, whatever you want to report to a VSO, what we say is how they're doing right now in your course. Make sure that is set to a percentage. That way you know that it's working off that 100% scale, and so that you're still welcome to use points to your heart's content, and that you can even keep a separate column for that or a secondary view for that. But that as long as it's set as a percentage, we know it's doing its job well. Another quick tip that I've noticed, again, this is the column I'm going to spend a little bit of time on because this is the one that everyone kind of gets stuck on, is the percent will be really wacky. So you'll be like, everything's great, except I'm not seeing 90s, I'm seeing 40s for everybody, or 20s and 30s. What's going on? Because you know your students are doing quite well. Generally what that means is if we go in and edit the column information on the weighted total column, and we scroll down under the little box where you set your percentages, you'll notice that your calculated as a running total might be set to no. So a running total being yes means it takes everything that they've currently done and doesn't penalize them for anything they haven't done yet. And so that way they get to be out of the 100% scale, but is not calculating all those zeros for things they haven't had a chance to do. So that's one of the first things I look for when I get a call or I get an email when there's something going on inside of your weighted total column. Now I'll go ahead and stay on this screen. So I just edited the weighted total column to show you what we see normally with how on a basic starter view. To me, it's easier as I was learning how to use the Grade Center. I like to use categories. Y'all are welcome to put in the chat if you like categories or if you prefer to use it by columns or points or percentages. You're welcome to share in there. I personally do categories so that everything in a single category can have a certain percent towards their grade. All right, so Erica's team categories over here. I find that it causes less drama because as long as you have things put into the same category, you can have as many as you want. You can be a little bit more flexible. If you build them by columns and you have to do the math yourself, you're creating an opportunity to potentially make a human error. Whereas if you're doing it by category, you have a little bit more wiggle room. Also, if you think about it, sometimes you may want to drop a grade. Some instructors have a choice of, maybe in the attendance or in your daily grades, maybe not a test, but depending on how you do it, you want to drop a grade. Well, I have so many instructors saying, guess what? I'm going to go in, I have to sit there and count everyone's grades, and I have to go in there and change them myself. And I'm like, no, you don't. If you do it by category and you say that they're doing assessments, they're doing their assignments, and you're going to drop the 2 lowest grades, then let it do it for you. So for each student in your course, it will drop those 2 lowest grades. It automatically knows if it's a category assignment, does the math behind the scenes, way smarter than me at math. I will warn you, you come to me with a math problem, it may take a little while, but we'll figure it out. Another tip, one of the other things I have noticed going through this is if you're starting the semester, which we're about a month or so in, you'll happen to notice that sometimes when you've inherited a grade book, similar to this one, your grades are coming out as 0. The students still look like they have 0. They've done an orientation quiz, they've done a discussion board, they've done an assignment, and your grades are still 0. I don't know if that's ever happened to y'all, but usually what happens when that occurs is that you've copied the course from the previous semester where you've already put in the drop grades. And so it's automatically seeing that grade they just earned as one of the drop grades. And so it's just immediately dropping their score. So their score is there. You can see it in the grade book, but the weighted total or the average completely off because it said, hey, drop the 2 lowest. Well, they only had 2 and we dropped them both. That was one of the ways we found as a workaround. And a troubleshooting tip is tell your students whether or not you're going to drop the grades, but maybe wait till midterm and then put a reminder on your calendar to maybe put them on once you've had enough grades to make an impact, or put a reminder on your calendar near the very end that you're going to do those drop grades. Because what sometimes happens is if you're dropping those grades earlier on, students are assuming they're doing that well, and they don't realize you're already dropping those 2 grades. If they think that they're going to be able to drop 2 more, sometimes their calculations that they take of what assignments they're going to do and not do for your class may change. So that's one of the conversations I've actually had with a student of mine when she was trying to figure out, does she do my course or does she, take the HIT course or the library course? Like, which one is she going to spend her time on? She's doing the math of which assignment's going to count more. So this is another area where you want to kind of look at it. Also, for simplicity's sake, if you are thinking about doing categories, but you do use points, one of the things I've had a question, and I'll go ahead and attribute it to Lauren Winkins, who teaches in our music classes. She was telling me that she had some assignments that she wanted to have count for 10 points. She wanted them to, she just wanted 10. She didn't want 100 because she had other assignments that are worth 100 points. And so she wanted those 10-point assignments to only be a tenth, basically, of the importance of those 100-point assignments. But they were all really assignments in her course. She wanted it to all go into that total percentage. So how do you kind of tell Blackboard, okay, I have these, 10 assignments, but some of them are going to be worth more points than the other, and I want it to be proportionally accurate. By default, it weighs everything equally. So let's say you have 5 tests and the tests are worth 20%. Well, that means each test is going to be worth what percent? I'm going to ask the chat. 5 tests worth 20%. Each test, if you're weighting equally, equals. All right, thanks, Joseph. Wonderful. So it's 4%. So that's the math that Blackboard would do. And so if it didn't matter how many points you put on that test, each of those 5 tests, each of those would count 4%. Well, that's not how Lauren wanted to do hers. She wanted to have some that had kind of weighed in differently based off those points. And so what you'll notice on the screen is you have a choice of equally and proportionally for any of your weighted columns that you're creating. So when you've selected that category, you can choose if it weights equally. So if they're in attendance, every week is an equal balance, or proportionally. And what you're doing proportionally is you're choosing the points for each of those things in that category based off the weight, how much you want them to kind of count towards, if that makes sense. So to me, that is one of the biggest tips I learned literally this semester, to be able to work around some instructors who want to use points, but they want to keep the comfort and the ease of using these categories as like 15% and 85%, which this is an ACA course. It's a very standard layout. You'll always want to make sure your total weight equals 100%. If not, we're going to have trouble. So once you've got that set up, my only other tip I really want to kind of reinforce here is that there are going to be times where you might see your gradebook averages go really up or really low. Like you might have someone with a 400% or someone with even a 4,000 or things like that. Generally, that means in one of your columns, you've exceeded your point value with a mistype. So you've given someone 100 when it was only worth 10 points. And so when you're troubleshooting, just kind of go through what you graded most recently before you noticed that. And you'll probably figure out you're probably using the wrong scale or you've mistyped, especially those things that are worth 10 points versus 100. It's happened to all of us at some point or another. And especially if it's happening to just a couple students, that usually tells us there's a keying error. And that's one way to kind of troubleshoot your grade book and figure out what might have gone wrong. But you also can reach out to us and we'll help you, dig in and find it. One thing I like to do as well is I create columns that are just text columns so I can give messages to students and kind of get their attention. So you'll happen to notice that I have a final grade column in my grade book. This is where I can give them their final grade typed, but not just the letter. I can put like a little message to them. I had a couple of students who didn't do so well, and so it would be maybe a D or an F, and I put email me or contact me after it. And you'd be amazed how many students actually reach out to me, where I had tried at least 4 or 5 emails prior to that, but somehow if I put it in their grade, they got back to me because it shows up on their app. I also use it for a notes column for myself. I do let the students see it. And it's just a matter of letting them know when they entered the course. So I just keep an extra way of tracking how they're doing when they entered the course. And I've started recently, I've got it hidden just for FERPA, but I even have a preferred name and pronouns column that I've put into my grade center so that I can have that with my students. So if they go by a nickname or a different preferred name and their pronouns, I just type those in, and it's just an easy way to keep track of my grades and that information at the same time. Because a lot of times, and Erica's going to teach you how you send reminders and do things in your grade book, it matters because you want to make sure you're referring to your students as they want to be referred to, and you don't always want to have to go back to your email or back to other cheat sheets of where you've kept that information. So I keep some of that in my grade book and just tell students it's there, and I let them make it visible so they can tell me if they have an update or if I misspelled their name or anything like that. But other than that, the one last thing I'll mention is if you go to manage and column organization, this is the best place to just make sure that you have everything in one view the way you want it. So this is how you change the order of your columns, so you can drag and drop them. You can also make sure you've named them the way you wanted. One of the other important things is I can make sure my categories are correct. And you can actually bulk change your categories here. So you just use the little checkbox on the left. You can select as many as you need to, go up to the top, and there's a change category to option, and you just select it and just make sure once you're done, you click submit to apply it, but you can do that all at once. And my last tip before I'm going to quit talking and give it over to Erica is I really enjoy this points possible column, because this is where if something's gone awry, I don't want to have to go to each column in my gradebook and go horizontally to figure out if I have all my points correct. I really like how I can see it all at once here. And sometimes I can troubleshoot and see if something might be off. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and pass it over to Erica for some of her tips.
Thanks so much, Amanda. Hi, everyone. My name is Erica Parker, and I'm the Program Director of the Health Information Technology Program. I am at the Harnett Health Sciences campus today, so I appreciate y'all joining us and learning some tips and tricks. Our program is all completely online, and so as you would imagine, we spend a lot of time in Blackboard and specifically in the gradebook as well. So I'm going to share my screen with you to share my first trick with you. And like Amanda, I have also removed my students' first names and last names to protect their FERPA and their identity, because this is a live class right now that I'm actually teaching for my program. And so you will see the first thing kind of off the bat is that we've got some green, yellow, and red happening here. And that's because I have color coded the grades in the gradebook to help me visually track and identify certain assignments in students and how they are performing. And so this helps me say like, hey, they did great on this assignment because they've earned the green, or, red is like caution, and then, yellow is caution, and then red is like, uh-oh, let's, take a second. So it's an easy at a glance view, and it's really easy to see and track. So you can see here, we have this second student that has, some reds and some yellows there that, we would possibly make an outreach for and make a connection. So how to set this up in the gradebook, excuse me, you go to manage, and then you go to the grading color codes. And there's a lot of different settings that you can do here. I use a traditional green, yellow, red, but you could, whenever you add criteria here at the bottom is how you set it up. You can do more than or equal to. So if you wanted to do passing, if you were a a program that has passing at C. For our program, they have to earn a C or better, and so A and B's equal green for me. C's are like, hey, you're doing good, but let's just kind of keep a check on you. And then anything below a C is of concern because it would, possibly affect their average. So, but these are the three areas or selections you can do: more than or equal to, less than, or between. And you could use this for different. So you wouldn't have to necessarily do 3 categories. You could do anything above a C or a D, or anything below to create a color. And you don't have to, you can just do one. So like if you wanted just to only highlight any grade that was a D or below, you could do that as well. You can also assign colors to grading statuses for in progress or needs grading or an exempt. So say if you have a student and they don't have to do that particular assignment and you've exempted them from that, you could, make that pink if you wanted to, per se. Or, needs grading, if you wanted that to be for yourself, to make a note for yourself, you can select a color for that, and then in progress. And so that was one of the questions Joseph is coming with, is do the students see these colors? And that is they do not, because this is from the gradebook setting. The students see the My Grades panel or My Grades tab, and so they do not see the gradebook like we do. They'll actually go through My Grades, and I can show you how they see that here if you want to. I'm just going to cancel because I've already got it set up. So they see here in My Grades. So I'm a student in the class. I don't have any grades assigned to myself, but there's not any color here. If I were to give myself, say, a 100 on this quiz here, just to test for you, it would still show up as gray. So the color coordination is only for the instructor, but it just helps you identify and kind of help keep track, of students and how they're doing, just if that's something, that could be helpful for you as well. The other thing that I find really helpful, thanks Tiffany, is a send reminder feature, and I use this at least weekly, if not more. And I'm actually going to demonstrate it with you today. This is a live class, and both of these assignments here, the week 5 discussion board and the chapter 6 and 7 quiz, is due tonight at 11:59. And so if you go to the assignment that you are wanting to email or outreach to the student concerning them not having submitted that assignment, you can select the arrow here at the beside the descriptor of the assignment, and then go to send reminder. And I'm going to go ahead and click this, and it's going to give me a little warning. It says, are you sure you want to send a reminder email to 2 students who do not have a grade or submission for this assignment? And I'm going to say okay, and you will see here that there are 2 students here that do not have a submission for this quiz that's due tonight at 11:59. And what it's doing is it is emailing the student to let them know, and I'm actually going to drag my email here. And this is the email that they received, and it says, you do not currently have a grade or submission for the following coursework. It tells them the title of the assignment and how you have it laid out, the course that it's in, and the course ID, and the due date. So this is the due date based on how you established it in the due date for the assignment in the course. And it instructs them to log in and review the instructions for this coursework and to check the calendar. So I find that super helpful because I don't have to automatically email every student that doesn't have an assignment. I can just hit that one button and everybody gets notified, and they get the same information. They get information about the due date, and it's been really great communicator between students, because students will actually email me back, oh, hi, Miss Parker, I am working on this assignment. I'm going to have it in tonight. Or, hi, Miss Parker, I'm working on this and I'm having a really hard time with question number 5. Can you help me out here? And so it's just a way that I can just make it a simple, easy outreach to remind them about it, and then also, create some more communication in regards to that. And then, like Amanda was saying, I'm a super OCD person, as you can tell by color coding and the way I organize things, but column organization is my best friend, and being able to organize, I have to have, it's in a certain order. If you notice, like I have my discussion board, I have my quiz, and if there is a week that we have a case study, it is discussion board, case study, and quiz. And so being able to move these assignments around in the certain order, and then also here by my due date, I find that helpful. And I also think that that's helpful for the students, because they kind of know what to expect, and then also that it's laid out in that certain date range in the gradebook, which, you know, kind of helps with the organization. So I'm going to cancel out of that, but we have a whole 2 minutes left for the session. So we just wanted to open it up for questions to see if anyone had any specific questions for us that we could help answer, or just wanted to kind of chat about something that we currently do. We would be happy to have those discussions. So thank y'all so much for joining us today, and hope you found this helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you, Erica. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording so that we're still on the 30-minute mark.